Welcome to Finspire, where timeless wisdom blends with modern life. Have you ever wondered why some people achieve financial freedom in just a few years, while many others work for decades, yet still feel stuck? Why is there such a huge difference? They are not smarter than you. They are not luckier than you. They also do not have a better starting point. The only difference is that they know something you may have never been taught in your entire life. Financial freedom does not come from how much you earn. It comes from how well you understand your money, where you direct it, and what habits you build every day. I used to be someone who only knew how to work harder, hoping for a better future. But then I realized a powerful truth. Financial freedom begins with how you treat even the smallest dollar in your pocket. It's not the big numbers that create change, but how you use the very first dollar. Today I want to share with you 12 principles that completely changed my life. These principles are simple enough that even a child could apply them, yet powerful enough to transform the future of anyone who practices them with persistence and discipline. And you should stay until the end of the video, cause principle number 12 is the key that helped me go from a young man struggling financially to someone who can freely choose his own path. I believe it can also become a major turning point in your life. If you're ready, we will begin the journey to financial freedom with just $1. Part 1. Understanding financial freedom correctly. When I was young, I used to think financial freedom meant having a lot of money in the bank. Many people believe the same. They think financial freedom is when you become rich, have a big house, a nice car, and everything you want. But the older I grew, the more I realized that had never been the correct definition. And this misunderstanding is exactly what keeps many people chasing financial freedom their whole lives without ever reaching it. Financial freedom is not about how many assets you have. It's not about how much you earn each month. Financial freedom is simply the ability to live on income that does not depend on your daily labor. It is the ability to choose whether to work or not. It is the peace of mind that comes from knowing your life continues to operate even when you pause to rest, learn, or pursue what you truly love. I remember a period when I worked constantly, almost without a single day off. Whenever someone asked me about the future, I always said, as long as I work harder, things will get better. But the truth was, they didn't. I worked myself to exhaustion, yet never felt free. I couldn't take even one day off without worrying about my wallet. I couldn't decide to take a long trip. I couldn't even spend one afternoon learning something new. I was forced to work whether I wanted to or not. And that was when I realized hard work has never been the goal. Hard work is only the means. Freedom is the destination. You can earn a lot of money, but if all of that money depends on your working hours, you are still not free. One illness, one accident, or one small incident is enough to make everything you've built for years collapse like a fragile tower. Financial freedom is not about how much you have in your pocket, but about how long you can stand if the income from your main job suddenly disappears. 1 week, 1 month, 6 months, or longer. When I met the first mentor of my life, he asked me a simple question. Jim, if tomorrow you could no longer work, how long could you survive? I was silent because I knew my answer was alarming. I couldn't survive even 1 week. And he smiled, not to mock me, but to open a new door for me. He said, then you don't have financial freedom. You're only living based on the luck of your health and your ability to work. That sentence woke me up. I realized that for years I had only focused on earning money, but never learned how to make money work for me. I relied solely on income from my job and never created any other streams of income. I only knew how to exchange labor for every dollar, but had never learned how to make $1 create the next dollars. That is the true essence of financial freedom. You don't have to quit your job. You don't have to become a millionaire. You don't need a huge amount of money in the bank. What you need is the ability to choose. The ability to stop, the ability to spend time on what matters, the ability to say no to what you don't want to do, and the ability to say yes to the life you truly desire. Financial freedom is the foundation of personal freedom because you cannot freely choose your life if you are not financially free. And the best part is this journey doesn't need to start with a large amount. It can begin with just $1, one small habit, one right decision, one disciplined choice. And when you understand financial freedom correctly, you begin to understand why money mindset matters so much. That is the second principle I want to share with you. Part 2, the right money mindset. For many years of my early life, I carried a very wrong belief about money. I believed money was the root of all problems. I thought money made people greedy, selfish, and lose their good values. I also believed loving money was a bad thing. That's why I avoided talking about money, avoided thinking about money, and avoided managing it. I only knew how to use my labor to earn money, but never understood how to make money serve me. One day, my mentor asked me a question that completely changed my perspective on money. He asked, "Jim, if money is truly bad, why do good people always need it to support their families and serve their communities?" I couldn't answer because when I look back I realized something very clear. Money never makes people worse. It only magnifies who they already are. If you are kind, more money makes you kinder. If you like helping others, more money helps you help more people. If you are responsible, more money makes you even more responsible. But if you're selfish, materialistic, or undisciplined, money only makes those traits more obvious. Money is not good. Money is not bad. Money is simply a tool. And how you use it is what matters. I still remember one evening in the small room where I lived at that time, my mentor told me something I will never forget. He said, "Jim, never hate money. Learn to respect it because anything you hate, you will never attract. Anything you respect, you will know how to protect and grow." I stayed silent because I realized that for years I avoided learning about money due to a false belief. I lived in scarcity yet never dared to face the real reason behind my scarcity. Many people are just like I was. They work hard but feel like their life never moves forward. They earn as much as they spend. They fear managing money because they think it's complicated. They fear investing because they think it's something too luxurious. They see money as something hard to grasp and too risky to touch. But it's that fear that keeps them far away from financial freedom. To change your life, you must change your money mindset. You must learn to respect every dollar you earn, no matter how small. You must understand that you are holding a powerful tool, one that can lift you up or pull you down, depending on how you treat it. I once met a young friend who was born in a difficult situation. His income was very low, just enough to get by. But his attitude was different from the people around him. Every time he received money, even a small amount, he kept a portion of it. Not because he was rich, but because he respected his money. And thanks to that mindset, after a short time, he built a solid foundation to invest and expand his opportunities. Not because he was lucky, but because he knew what most people do not. Loving money is not bad. Only being greedy makes you lose yourself. Loving money means respecting it. Loving money means learning how to manage it. Loving money means understanding that with money, you can take care of your family, help others, and build a better life. And with money, you can create opportunities for yourself to become a better version of who you are. When you change how you think about money, money changes how it comes to you. When you open your mind to learning about money, you begin to see opportunities everywhere. When you respect money, you don't spend it carelessly. And when you understand money is a tool for life, not the thing that controls your life, you are halfway to financial freedom. And once your mindset is correct, you will understand why there is an undeniable truth. Salary cannot bring you financial freedom. That is what I want to share with you next. Part 3. Why your salary cannot make you financially free. When I was young, I was just like everyone else. I believed that if I worked harder, I would earn more. And if I earn more, life would surely be better. So I worked harder and harder day and night, willing to take on any extra task for a small increase in salary. But the more I worked, the more I realized something disappointing. Salary is never enough. And no matter how hard I tried, it could not give me the freedom I wanted. One afternoon, I remember my mentor sitting down and asking me, "Jim, do you know why your salary can't bring you financial freedom?" I told him I didn't know. I guessed it was because I wasn't good enough. But he shook his head and said, "It's not because you're not good enough. It's because the nature of salary is already limited. Salary is something you exchange with your time and effort. You work 1 hour, you get paid for 1 hour. You work 8 hours, you get paid for 8 hours. But here's the truth most people don't want to face. Your time is limited. You only have 24 hours in a day. You can't work 30 hours. You can't work 2 full-time jobs at once. You cannot double your labor overnight. Therefore, your salary-based income is limited in the same way your time is limited. And that is why no matter how hard you try, your salary cannot increase at the pace you hope. You can work twice as hard, but it's very unlikely your salary will double. You can put in more effort, but people cannot pay you exponentially more just because you try harder. This dependency prevents you from taking control of your financial life. I once met a man who worked almost his entire life at a stable company. He worked from his youth until his hair turned gray. Each month he received his salary as steady as a clock. But when his health began to decline, he realized he had never been truly free. He couldn't stop working, not even for a few months. Because if he stopped, his income would disappear instantly. And when income disappeared, his family's life would be threatened. He looked at me and said something I will never forget. "Jim, salary helped me survive, but it never helped me be free." That is the story of many people. Salary gives you stability. But that very stability makes you forget that you are completely dependent on one single income stream. And anything that depends on only one source is as fragile as a bridge standing on one pillar. If that pillar shakes, the entire bridge collapses. Financial freedom requires you to break away from that dependence. You cannot reach freedom if you place your entire future on only one source of income. You need income streams that do not depend on your presence. Income that continues to flow while you sleep, when you're sick, or when you spend time learning and growing. That is why my mentor always emphasized, "Jim, don't work just to earn a paycheck. Work to build value. Value is what pays you forever." When you understand this, you will stop seeing salary as a savior. You will see it as only one small part of your financial picture. You will begin to ask yourself, if tomorrow my salary disappears, can I still stand? If the answer is no, you do not have financial freedom. You are only temporarily surviving on daily labor. But to step out of that dependence, you need a new mindset, a new direction, and a special lesson I learned from my first mentor. The lesson that changed my entire view of money and became the foundation that led me to financial freedom. And that is exactly what I want to share with you in the next part. Part 4, The Lesson from My Mentor. There was a day I will never forget. It was the day my first mentor stepped into my life and asked questions that completely overturned everything I thought about money. Before I met him, I was a young man struggling in my own life. I worked hard but never had enough money. I wanted to take care of my family, but I wasn't even stable myself. I wanted to grow, but I was always tangled up in financial worries. I thought that was normal. But then that mentor made me realize I had been wrong from the very beginning. The first time I met him, I felt like I was standing in front of someone who understood life more deeply than anyone I had ever known. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't criticize. He just asked questions. But those questions woke me up. He asked me, "Jim, how much money have you set aside for yourself?" I froze for a moment. I honestly did not know how to answer. I had nothing set aside, not a single dollar. And when I admitted that, he didn't blame me. He simply nodded slightly and said, "I see. Then now we know where the problem is." At that moment, I still didn't understand what he meant because in my mind, I only had one thought. When I earn more money, I'll save. But he looked at me and said slowly, "Jim, that is the most dangerous belief of people who will never become rich. The rich have a lot of money because they learned to manage money back when they had almost nothing. The poor wait until they have a lot of money to start learning how to manage it, and they will never start." That sentence almost stopped me in my tracks. I realized I had lived for years with a reversed mindset. I always believed that once I earned more money, everything would naturally get better. But the truth is the opposite. You don't get more money just because you promise to manage it better someday. You get more money when you build the habit of managing it today. My mentor took a piece of paper and wrote 3 words in front of me. "The plan matters." Then he looked at me and said, "It's not the amount of money you have that matters. What matters is your plan for that money. $1 in the hands of someone with no plan will disappear immediately, but $1 in the hands of someone with a plan becomes a seed, and that seed will grow." I remember he told me a simple but profound story. It was about a boy whose father gave him $1 and taught him how to divide it. One part to spend, one part to save, one part to invest, one part to help others. At first, the boy didn't understand why he had to split it up like that. But after some time, he realized something. The way he used $1 would decide how he would use $10, $100, and even $1,000. Because the essence is not in the amount, but in the habit. My mentor looked at me and said, "Jim, you don't need a large sum of money to start changing your life. You just need to learn how to treat even the smallest amount correctly, because the way you treat $1 will determine how you handle every dollar in the future." I sat there in silence because in that moment, I realized I had been mistaken for more than a decade. I had thrown myself into earning money, but never learned how to keep it. I wanted freedom, but I never built a foundation for freedom. I wanted my life to change, but I kept acting the same, thinking the same, spending the same. My mentor added a sentence that I still remember to this day. "Jim, if you want things to change, you must change first. If you stay the same person you were yesterday, your life will also remain the life of yesterday." When he said that, I knew I had reached a turning point in my life. Not because he gave me money, not because he gave me an opportunity, but because he gave me a completely new mindset, a way of thinking that could open the door to financial freedom. And from that conversation, I learned the next lesson, the one that completely changed how I saw the very first dollar in my life. That lesson is called the $1 story. That is what I will share with you in the next part. Part 5, the $1 story. When my first mentor told me that every financial journey could begin with just $1, I laughed. I thought he was joking. What can $1 do? You can't even buy a full meal. But he looked at me and said, "Jim, your problem isn't how much money you have. Your problem is that you don't know how to treat the smallest amount." That sentence made me go quiet because I realized I had always been waiting for a big sum of money to start changing. I always thought that when I earned more, I would start saving. When my income was higher, I would start investing. When I had extra, I would start taking my finances seriously. But the truth is, I never had that win. My mentor pulled his chair closer and told me a story he had used to teach many people before me. He said there was a boy who received the first $1 of his life. The father didn't ask the boy what he wanted to buy. Instead, he asked, "What will you do so this money can help you grow?" The boy was surprised because in a child's mind, money is for spending, not for growing with you. But the father explained that $1 is not just a piece of paper. It is a seed. And if you know how to plant it, one day it will bear fruit. As my mentor told the story, I began to understand what he meant. He went on to explain the principle that father taught his son. He said the boy was guided to divide $1 into 4 small parts. 1 part to spend, 1 part to save, 1 part to invest, and 1 part to give. At first, the boy didn't understand why he had to divide it like that. But the father said, "If you don't learn how to divide $1, you will never know how to divide $10, $100, or $1,000. My mentor looked at me and asked, "Jim, do you know what the most wonderful thing in this story is?" I shook my head. He said, "It's not about how much money the boy has. It's that he learned a habit, and a habit is what creates wealth." In that moment, it felt like a light went on inside me. For years, I had been searching for opportunities to make more money. But I had forgotten that the greatest opportunity was to change my smallest habits. I wanted financial freedom, but I had never learned how to treat the first dollar in my hand properly. My mentor continued, "A person who earns $1,000 but doesn't know how to manage it will be poorer than someone who earns only $100 but knows how to use it. Because the difference is not in how much you earn, but in your ability to keep it and multiply it." That sentence became the foundation for every financial decision I made later. I began to look at $1 with completely new eyes. It was no longer a meaningless bill. It was a test. It was a foundation. It was a starting point. You might see $1 as too small to care about, but if you look down on small things, you will never have big things. If you can't manage $1, you won't manage 10. If you can't manage 10, you will never keep 100. And if you can't master $100, don't even think about 1,000 or 1 million. $1 is where you learn discipline. $1 is where you learn to respect money. $1 is where you learn how to spend, how to keep, how to invest, and how to give. $1 is where you form the mindset of someone who is financially free. I still remember my mentor looking at me and saying, "Jim, if you can't start with $1, you won't be able to start with any number. But if you start with $1 and do it right, you can change your entire life." And from that lesson, I moved on to the next principle. The principle that helped me build my entire financial system. It is the core rule I have shared with thousands of people over many years. The rule called the 70% rule. That is what I want to tell you in the next part. Part 6, the 70% rule. When I tell someone that if they want financial freedom, they must learn to live on 70% of their income. Most people react the same way. They feel it's almost impossible. They tell me that the cost of living is too high, their needs are too many, and 70% is far too little to live comfortably. But it is exactly because they think that way that they never reach true freedom. My mentor once said, "Jim, the problem is not how much you earn. The problem is how much you keep." And he taught me that the first rule of financial freedom does not start with earning more, but with controlling what you have. He told me to take my income, no matter how much it was, and immediately set aside a portion for the future. Only then should I use the rest to live in the present, but never the other way around. Because if you let your lifestyle decide what's left for the future, there will not be much future left. I remember the first time I applied the 70% rule, I also felt it was hard. I felt like I had to cut out many things that seemed important. I had to give up a few spending habits I thought I couldn't live without. I had to review every bill, every expense, every dollar I spent each day. But then I realized something. I wasn't cutting out the quality of my life. I was cutting out what wasn't truly necessary, the things I used to spend money on simply because I didn't understand the value of each dollar. My mentor taught that when you live on 70% of your income, you are giving yourself room to grow. You are building the foundation for new streams of income. And most importantly, you are learning to take charge of your life instead of letting life take charge of you. He once told me a very good line, "Jim, there are two kinds of people in this world. Those who spend first and hope there's something left, and those who set money aside first and spend what remains. And only one of these two kinds has a bright future." I immediately knew which kind I wanted to be. When you begin living by the 70% rule, you will notice something interesting. The things you once thought you couldn't live without turn out to be just habits. The items you bought on impulse don't bring lasting value. The small expenses you ignore every day, when added up, become a shocking number. I once met a man whose salary wasn't high, but his finances were solid. When I asked for his secret, he just smiled and said, "Jim, I'm not wealthy because I earn a lot. I'm wealthy because I keep a lot." He always lived on 60 or 65% of his income, not because he was forced to save, but because he understood that true freedom comes from discipline, not from luck. The 70% rule is not there to make you live a harsh life. It is there to help you live with more purpose. When you decide to live on 70%, you are telling yourself that you are strong enough to control your life. You are mature enough to put your future first, and you are disciplined enough not to let money control you. Ask yourself, if today you set aside 30% of your income for the future, what would your life look like 1 year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? That number could change your entire life. I know many people think that as long as they earn more money, they will automatically have financial freedom. But that is an illusion. If you earn $2,000 a month and spend it all, then earn $5,000 a month and still spend it all, you will remain in the same place. Freedom does not come from income. Freedom comes from discipline. And once you have learned to live correctly on 70%, you are ready to move on to the next part. The part that will determine whether you truly become wealthy or not. The part that helps you understand why giving is the root of true abundance. That is exactly what I will share with you in the next part. Part 7, Giving to Receive. When I began my journey to financial freedom, there was one principle that made me hesitate the most. It was the rule of setting aside 10% to give. At that time, my finances were not stable. My income was not high. I still had to take care of my family, my life, and unexpected expenses that could arise. And when my mentor told me to set aside a portion of my income to help others, I almost couldn't understand.